The world in 1941 was a powder keg on the verge of exploding. The flames of war, ignited by a resurgent Germany in Europe, cast long shadows over the globe. Japan, a nation with its own imperial ambitions, watched these events with keen interest. Hungry for resources and driven by dreams of dominance in Asia, Japan saw an opportunity in the chaos engulfing Europe. The United States, though officially neutral, had begun to take notice of Japan's aggressive actions in China and Southeast Asia. Diplomatic efforts to curb Japan's expansionism proved largely ineffective. Tensions escalated as Japan, feeling increasingly cornered and desperate, began to consider a drastic course of action. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the world. A clash of ideologies, ambitions, and ultimately wills was brewing in the Pacific. The fate of nations hung in the balance, and the world watched with bated breath as the storm clouds gathered. The seeds of conflict had been sown long before, in the aftermath of World War I. Japan, though on the winning side of that conflict, felt cheated by the peace settlement. The Treaty of Versailles, they believed, had denied them their rightful place in the world order. This resentment festered, providing fertile ground for the rise of militarism and nationalism in Japan. Japan's military leaders, emboldened by their successes in China, began to advocate for a more assertive foreign policy. They believed that a swift and decisive strike against the United States Pacific Fleet, stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, would cripple American power in the region. This, they reasoned, would give Japan a free hand to pursue its expansionist goals in Southeast Asia, rich in resources vital to fuel its war machine. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. Some within the Japanese government argued against it, knowing full well the industrial might and resolve of the United States. However, the allure of a swift victory, coupled with a deep underestimation of American capabilities and resolve, ultimately swayed the decision. On December 7, 1941, the die was cast. A Japanese carrier strike force, under the command of Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, steamed towards Pearl Harbor, its decks laden with aircraft armed and ready for a surprise attack. The fate of the Pacific, and indeed the world, hung in the balance as the sun rose over the seemingly tranquil Hawaiian Islands. At 7:55 a.m. local time, the first wave of Japanese aircraft descended upon the unsuspecting American fleet anchored at Pearl Harbor. The attack, a meticulously planned and executed operation, caught the Americans completely off guard. Battleships, moored in neat rows, became sitting ducks for the Japanese bombers. Airfields were strafed and bombed, destroying American aircraft on the ground. The surprise was complete, and the damage inflicted was devastating. In a matter of hours, the Japanese had crippled the American Pacific Fleet. 4 battleships were sunk, and another 4 were heavily damaged. Over 180 aircraft were destroyed, and thousands of American servicemen were killed or wounded. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a tactical masterpiece for the Japanese. However, it proved to be a strategic blunder of epic proportions. They had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with a terrible resolve. The news of the attack on Pearl Harbor sent shockwaves across the United States. The nation, still reeling from the Great Depression, was united in its outrage and grief. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, in a stirring address to Congress, declared December 7th a date which will live in infamy and asked for a declaration of war against Japan. Congress, with only one dissenting vote, obliged. America, once hesitant to join the conflict raging in Europe and Asia, was now fully committed to war. The arsenal of democracy, as Roosevelt had dubbed his nation, began to mobilize its vast industrial and human resources for the fight ahead. The attack on Pearl Harbor had galvanized the American spirit. From the ashes of that December day, a nation rose to meet the challenge, its resolve tempered in the fires of war. The attack on Pearl Harbor had profound consequences that reverberated across the globe. Germany and Italy, Japan's allies in the Axis powers, declared war on the United States, solidifying the global nature of the conflict. The world watched as the battle lines were drawn and the fate of civilization hung in the balance. The attack also had a profound impact on the lives of ordinary people far removed from the battlefields. Japanese Americans, suspected of harboring loyalties to their ancestral homeland, were rounded up and interned in camps, a dark chapter in American history. The world had entered a new and dangerous era. The attack on Pearl Harbor, a single event on a seemingly ordinary Sunday morning, had irrevocably altered the course of the 20th century. With the Pacific Fleet temporarily crippled, Japan seized the initiative. They launched a series of lightning-fast offensives, conquering vast swathes of territory in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Hong Kong, Singapore, the Philippines, all fell to the seemingly unstoppable Japanese war machine. However, the Americans, though bloodied but unbowed, were not defeated. They fought back with a tenacity and ferocity that surprised even the battle-hardened Japanese. The Battle of Midway, 6 months after Pearl Harbor, proved to be a turning point in the Pacific War. The Americans, aided by code-breaking intelligence, dealt a crushing blow to the Japanese fleet, sinking 4 aircraft carriers and ending Japan's string of victories. The tide of war was slowly but surely turning. The United States, with its vast industrial might and unwavering resolve, was gearing up for a long and costly fight to defeat Japan and secure victory in the Pacific. The war effort touched every aspect of American life, from factories churning out tanks and planes to women working in shipyards and assembly lines. The entire nation mobilized to support the fight. Rationing became a way of life, and scrap metal drives were common sights in towns and cities across the country. The war also had a profound impact on American society. Millions of men and women left their homes to serve in the armed forces, forever changing the demographic landscape of the nation. Women, traditionally relegated to domestic roles, entered the workforce in droves, proving their mettle and challenging gender norms. The United States, forged in the fires of war, was emerging as a global superpower, its economy booming and its military might unmatched. After 4 long years of brutal fighting, the war in the Pacific finally came to an end in August 1945. The dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a controversial decision that remains debated to this day, forced Japan's unconditional surrender. Victory in the Pacific came at a heavy price. Hundreds of thousands of Americans had made the ultimate sacrifice, their lives cut short in distant lands. The war had left an indelible mark on the American psyche, shaping the nation's foreign policy and its role in the world for decades to come. The legacy of Pearl Harbor, however, extended far beyond the battlefield. It served as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, the perils of isolationism, and the need for a strong national defense. The attack on Pearl Harbor remains a pivotal event in American history, a day that continues to resonate deeply with the nation. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of peace, the importance of diplomacy, and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked aggression. Today, the USS Arizona Memorial stands as a solemn reminder of that fateful day. Visitors from around the world come to pay their respects to the fallen, to reflect on the lessons of history, and to honor the sacrifices made by those who served and died at Pearl Harbor. The events of December 7, 1941, should never be forgotten. They serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the importance of striving for peace. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a watershed moment in the 20th century, marking the beginning of America's rise as a global superpower and ushering in a new era defined by the Cold War. The world, forever changed by the events of that day, had entered a new and uncertain future. The legacy of Pearl Harbor continues to shape international relations, military strategy, and our understanding of the world today. It serves as a reminder that even in times of peace, the threat of conflict is never far away, and that vigilance, diplomacy, and a commitment to global cooperation are essential to preventing future tragedies. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a tragedy, but it also revealed the resilience of the human spirit, the power of unity, and the enduring legacy of courage and sacrifice in the face of adversity.